Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, where we dissect the trends and strategies that are surprising and delighting the marketing industry. I'm Jenny Mywin, reporter at Marketing Brew.
I'm Kelsey Sutton, editor.
And I'm Katie Hicks, senior reporter.
Today, we are digging into what the Hawkins crew and Stranger Things has done for Netflix as a brand over the years, plus all of the marketing lessons that anyone, streamer or not, can take from the Netflix playbook.
Netflix is in a really good place. We just finished up Thanksgiving weekend, and there was a new batch of episodes for Stranger Things, which is Netflix's third most popular English language series ever, and a new batch of episodes for the final season have released over Thanksgiving. We don't have viewership stats in as of the time of recording, but there were reports that the platform crashed within 24 hours of the release of the new batch of episodes, which I think gives us a little bit of an indication of how popular Stranger Things is and was over that weekend. But I think that Stranger Things and what Netflix has done with that show is kind of a great lens to examine how Netflix has shifted its brand strategy and what it's trying to really do with all of its shows, as it's trying to really cement itself as a must-have streaming service, whether that's in the US or that's around the world. So I'm excited to dig into it with you guys.
I know. I literally can't wait to hear about it. I mean, it's a show that I feel like has been around for so long and has such a devoted fan base at this point, which there's some contention as to why it's been around for so long with the breaks they've taken in between, but like you can't deny the impact that it's had. And obviously it's impacted Netflix as a business, and they really are seen as like leaders in the streaming marketing world in general, and they have some strategies that I feel like a lot of people want to get into for sure. Well, I can't wait to hear all about it and discuss it with you guys, but before we dig into it, I do have to ask you, if you guys could automate one thing out of your life, what would it be?
Dusting my whole apartment.
Gosh, that's such a good point. All the crevices, all the books
every
on my
corner,
bookcase.
every nook and cranny.
It is bad, yeah. Well, that's a great answer, but an even better answer for marketers is automating busy work away with ActiveCampaign. Their autonomous marketing platform helps cut out the tedious parts for you, like building your email and SMS campaigns, optimizing them based on billions of data points, and summing up the results with clear next steps, not endless reports.
That way, you can spend more time on strategy and less time on all that marketing admin. ActiveCampaign's specialized AI agents can extend your team and handle all that operational work, so you get your message out there in minutes, not months.
Plus, you can align your message across every channel instead of losing things through the endless game of office telephone. Take all that work off your back when you go to activecampaign.com. That's activecampaign.com.
So I have to ask, have either of you watched the new batch of episodes, or have you watched Stranger Things in general?
I've been along for the ride pretty much since 2016. I'm like pretty devoted fan. I didn't hop on when the platform was crashing, which I guess was good in retrospect. But it feels like literally required viewing at this point. I feel like even if you're not a fan, like you're aware of how big this franchise has gotten for sure.
And you gotta know how it wraps up, you know? Yeah, I started watching it 10 years ago when it came out, and now I haven't watched the latest episodes yet, but like you said, required viewing. I'm like, well, at this point, I gotta watch the last episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it is such if you watched even just the first season, there is basically no escaping it, that this final season is out, it is being released. And I think that I want to talk about how this show has sort of boosted Netflix's profile over the years. I mean, I think about when that show first came out, it was kind of a risk for the streamer, sort of unknown showrunners, a cast that was largely new.
Kids.
All those kids.
A bunch of kids plus Winona Ryder.
Yes.
One sure bet.
A very sure bet.
Yeah.
And since then, I think Stranger Things has generated $1 billion in revenue for Netflix. That's the estimate. And it's driven millions of subscriber acquisitions. The show is incredibly popular. I said at the top of the show that it's their third most popular English language series globally. But I think the thing that's really interesting about this season is, I mean, again, thinking about the way that Stranger Things has become sort of everywhere, almost Wickedified. Remember when we spoke a little bit of
Barbified, perhaps.
Yes, Barbified, right? You go into a retailer and there are Stranger Things partnerships. You watch the show, there are brand integrations. It's really inescapable. And that has just helped boost the Netflix profile so much.
And I do think that phenomenon has like built over the years too, right? Like we're at the climax now because it's the final season, but they've really like built up this brand that other brands want to get in on, and that has been over these last 10 years. I feel like every time a new season comes out, there's this kind of energy around it that other corporate entities are excited about it, as well as the fans themselves.
Well, there's a nostalgia component to it too, and I think that's like a theme that comes up a lot in marketing is like people love nostalgia, and like Gatorade, for instance, this season is doing like they brought back their glass bottles and it appears in the show, and Netflix posted a scene from the show on their Instagram account to like more than 20 million followers of these like Gatorade retro bottles. And I think that's like a fun thing for the brand to participate in. You bring back some like old looks, you know, throw back to your old marketing ideas. And then at the same time, like people who are maybe a little bit older might remember them. There's a nostalgia component there, but it's also brand new for younger viewers. So you're reaching a lot of people with like a new concept, but it's also an old concept.
I think that's such a good point. I think in a lot of ways, Stranger Things was sort of the perfect vehicle for brands. It's set in the 80s, so of course there are people who maybe are introducing their children to that time. There's this like nostalgia element.
The kids are like, Gatorade used to come in glass? What?
Right. I honestly did not know that. Sorry to like reveal my age, but what?
Or there was in one of the past seasons, there was New Coke was re-released to be part of that. And the 80s I think is such an interesting time because a lot of brands that are big brands today had ad campaigns in the 80s.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of digging back to what did the older version of our brand look like? And there's really this value, this interest in kind of tapping into, 40, 45 years ago. That's really all it has taken. But I think that I want to talk a little bit about kind of the way that that has just allowed for the Stranger Things brand, and then of course the little red N next to all of those things has sort of gone everywhere. It's it's not just in the show, it's not just in retailers. But Jenna, you wrote about how Stranger Things now is on Broadway. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of what that's looked like as a brand extension for the show, and also by virtue of the fact Netflix as well?
Yeah, definitely. So the Stranger Things play on Broadway right now is called The First Shadow, and it's a prequel to the series itself. Technically, you don't need to see it to understand the main Netflix show, but I have heard murmurings from the Stranger Things fandom that there is some important lore revealed in the show that does aid your understanding of the new season. So I think that's an interesting piece from it. But I think the fact that Netflix could expand its TV show into a Broadway medium is just one example of how much this show has provided opportunity for the branding of Stranger Things and Netflix to go beyond just the platform, the streaming platform that you see it on and you know it on, right? Like this is now expanding it to theater fans, to people who really love like live production and having that experience. And that is something that Netflix is so good at, is taking the IP that they have and extending it in a way that creates like more touch points for fans to feel deeper into the world of like these characters and these storylines that they have spent a lot of time developing like a true commitment to. So that's just one piece that they've been able to do, and I think that's something that shows how much opportunity the Stranger Things like IP has bloomed over the years.
Yeah, but isn't it so interesting? Like, again, when we talk about the first season, the first couple of seasons, it was kind of a slow build, and Netflix has changed so much as a company over the span of Stranger Things being released. So one of the things that Stranger Things has sort of represented for Netflix is it represented a push into experiential. There were these pop-up events where Stranger Things fans could go and walk through these experiences, take photos, really become part of the world of Hawkins and the Upside Down. But then we've also seen it as their push into consumer products. And again, I think there are a lot of brands, not just Netflix, not just streaming services, that are really trying to figure out how do we win consumers and where are we most likely to build a strong emotional connection with them? And I think for a lot of streamers like Netflix, they're kind of realizing we have to get out of the living room. We have to get out of just the screen. And of course, there are lots of brands too that are saying, if we're advertising on TV, we're advertising on social, that's not enough. We need to push out into real experiences. We need to push out into real products that people can become a part of. And I can't help but think a little bit about how Disney for media brands has really sort of set the playbook for what that kind of perpetual motion machine of fandom sort of looks like. You watch the show, you go to the store, you buy the product, you go to the experience, you go to the theme park, you come back and you watch the next part of the show or the movie. You know, there you go to the movies and you watch it at home, then you buy the box set, then right, this kind of, it just kind
It's
of
a world.
continues.
Yeah.
It's a world. And that, of course, I think is what so many brands are trying to do and trying to kind of create, whether that's in entertainment or elsewhere, because we just know that that is the most likely chance that you're going to build that emotional connection. And once you do that, you've kind of locked in a consumer for life.
Definitely.
I mean, they're definitely moving into that like experiential aspect in like a more permanent state too. Like, you know, there are like theme parks like Disney World. There's your Nickelodeon universe at a mall. And Jenny, I know you just went to Netflix House at a mall outside of Philly. Is that right?
King of Prussia Mall, the experience of a lifetime.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about it? What was the vibe?
The vibe. So if you walk in, there's a big red envelope that's at the door. So it's all very like Netflix from the very moment you come in. There's big red stairs. Their big thing is creating this space where you can continue to like literally put yourselves into the worlds of their biggest IP. So their biggest things that you can do there are these featured experiences that are like hour-long-ish experiences where you go in and you immerse yourselves into the worlds of the IP that they've chosen to feature. Right now, it's One Piece, which is an anime pirate situation, and Wednesday, like a carnival type of game experience that you can put yourself in and like explore these worlds. Of course, there's a ton of merch as well. You go up the big red stairs and you're kind of in like every little corner has like little nods to whatever your favorite show might be. Bridgerton, Stranger Things, of course. One Piece was there. I feel like there's a big One Piece.
Emily in Paris, maybe?
Emily in Paris, yeah, a little like flower shop. So it's really just like taking all these like pieces from the shows that you're familiar with and like bringing them to life. There's a restaurant that like serves you like comfort food ultimately, but it's all like themed to be related to their biggest hits. There was like a chicken tender bite situation that was related to Squid Game, mostly in the naming of it. It was like the red light, green light, chicken, something or other like that. So they're taking every opportunity to just take what they already have and put it in front of you in as many ways as possible. One of the other ways that they're doing it too is that they have like a mini golf game that like every single hole is related to another Netflix property. So there was one that was like, is it cake? Like there's Love is Blind. So it's really not just like the like tent pole like prestige like type of shows,
TV,
scripted. Yeah, like they're getting the reality pieces in as well. So it's really like they like Kelsey said, they've done the pop-up like city-based experiences before, but this is a permanent location. They're really like sticking to their guns and like going to be here for a while. And there's 2 more locations coming, one later this year and one in 2027. So they're committing to the game. They really want people to come in and they want to have them have a space where they can immerse themselves in these worlds. And again, deepen that fan connection and deepen their desire to be like thinking about Netflix at all times. And you can bring your family, you can, maybe one person in your family likes this one show, but like you bring 4 other people that like enjoyed exploring the Wednesday carnival and they'll go home and they'll maybe watch it, or they'll go upstairs and they'll see a cute little Wednesday themed piece of merch and they'll be like, oh, like maybe I want to rep this. So it's really just, yeah, continuing that world and continuing your ability to stay immersed in it as long as you want to, really.
I think something that's interesting about Netflix House is that it's kind of pivoting from, or not pivoting, but sort of an evolution from a pop-up that's based on a very specific title that's really encouraging fandom for that specific piece of IP to building or attempting to build brand love for Netflix proper. One of the things I remember, you showed us a photo of it, but the Netflix house is based outside of Philly. There's going to be more around the country opening up soon, but there's Netflix, which spelled
PHL,
PHL, right, to reference Philly. But again, it's emphasizing the Netflix brand and sort of trying to encourage brand love, not just for one show.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you come in for the one show, but they want you to leave, or it seems like they want you to leave thinking, gosh, Netflix is the best, right? Not just, oh, I love Wednesday, I love Stranger Things, but really trying to take that and spin it out and say you leave a fan of the whole product.
Yeah, and I feel like that piece of merch, and then the other one that was part of that same stand was a shirt that said, "Are yous still watching?" which is a little piece of Philly slang and plays on the Netflix pop-up that comes up when you are watching a show and you might have walked away and it says, "Are you still watching?" That I want to call out specifically because I do think that shows something that Netflix does well that I think other brands should pay attention to is they're doing merch that is like obviously geared at getting you to feel good about Netflix and think like about Netflix when you're thinking about all of the IP that you love from Netflix, but they're not just slapping Netflix on a shirt and calling it a day. They are taking that effort to like make it specific to the Philly location. They're using Philly slang. Like it looks cute and cool and there's like a little nod there. Like if you're like a real like Philly pride kind of person, like are you still watching? I know that like Philly people are like, yeah, I do talk like that. Like that, taking that extra step to like really make merch that is like kind of a wink wink, like at a piece of culture that the people that you are targeting might actually connect to is what I feel like turns merch into a piece of marketing itself. Because then you're like proud to be like, yes, like this like little nod at like Philly culture is also related to Netflix. And like it signifies all my interests in one rather than just like I'm going to rep Netflix. Because it's hard to encourage someone to have brand love just for the sake of brand love and not connecting it to something that they like feel is a part of their identity, you know?
Making it personalized.
Yeah.
Tailored to your demo.
And I was going to say, Netflix has so much experience localizing its programming, right? And as they've expanded globally and really tried to make inroads in all of these different markets globally, they've been very good at, having programming that speaks to specific audiences in specific markets. And this is almost like a hyper version, a city version of that. Netflix's programming team is not necessarily thinking we need to make a show that's specifically targeting Philly, but in their if they expand their retail footprint in this way, this experiential footprint, it's sort of hyper localized, right? It's sort of saying, well, we know that people in the US watch a lot of Wednesday. They watch a lot of Stranger Things. They watch a lot of One Piece. So we'll have that here. But then we can even target down to a much more granular level, right? Because if you go to the Netflix house in a different place, they're going to have different merch. And that kind of encourages that continued cycle of engagement, right? And potentially even additional purchases.
Yeah, definitely.
I think all of it's just a way to reach the audience offline too. I mean, like if someone's carrying around like custom Philly merch from Netflix, you're advertising to a new audience, people who might not be on Netflix but might see that, go, oh, Netflix pays attention to my demo. They're built for a Philly audience. I should maybe subscribe or check it out. But also like Netflix has, I feel like, paid a lot of attention and put a lot of effort into these IRL stunts. Like in addition to like permanent structures like Netflix House, they do a lot of out-of-home for shows like Stranger Things. They do a lot of in-your-face, like out-in-the-world type activations. I think it was season 4, like 3 years ago, when they took over major landmarks across the world with like the upside-down rift opening in them. And everyone's like, what's going on? And then finally it was revealed to be promo for Stranger Things, but generated a lot of buzz, got people talking. And I feel like those types of things, too, lend themselves really well to social and people post about it.
Totally.
I mean, like Stranger Things alone has 20 million followers on Instagram. And like, if you look at, just the UGC, I'm sure it's like well beyond whatever they're posting is getting like a ton of engagement.
Yeah. Anytime a streamer brand, I feel like too, can take their IP and put it into the real world, people get excited about that because they're fictional worlds at the end of the day, right? They're not the only ones who have done it. HBO did it with Game of Thrones. They put like a literal dragon for House of the Dragon on the Empire State Building, I think it was.
Apple TV put the Severance cast in that little glass box in Grand Central and had them like working, and people are like, wait, is that the actual cast?
Yeah.
Okay, that's so funny. I feel like this is a mini trend. We want to hear about the third brand that's put somebody in a box.
Yes,
because
please.
there's that B2B expense management platform Ramp, and recently they worked with the actor Brian Baumgartner, who plays Kevin in The Office, since he's sort of the most famous accountant on television, and had him kind of doing expense work and basically saying there's a better way to do that. And I think that was such a fun example of a brand that doesn't really have easily accessible stories, right? You know, they're an expense management platform. They don't have a show, right, to tap into, but they were able to find a connection to something really culturally relevant, which, of course, we know The Office has huge fandom, working with that and kind of bringing that storytelling to life. And I think that's one of the things that I take away from this is for brands, like, it's so finding a way to be culturally relevant to a regular person, and that might be finding out what shows are popular, what movies are popular, what are people talking about, how do we tap into that in a way that's really kind of fun and unique. And then, of course, not everyone's going to walk past a glass box in New York, but people are going to see it on social media. They'll see it maybe in press coverage, et cetera. There's that kind of value in those IRL stunts because they just help build, they get a person excited, and then they kind of associate that feeling with whatever brand is kind of involved. Of course, the challenge is just knowing, you know, do people know what that story or what that thing is associated with? Because somebody could go, what was that company that put the Kevin from The Office in the box? I don't remember. And so you have to like, you want them to remember.
Right. But I think sometimes maybe is it enough that like, oh, that like was such a weird stunt. Like, let me go like look that up again. Like, who did that? Why did they do that? So like, I think the level of challenge is different for every brand because when Netflix does a Stranger Things activation, it's like, okay, we know who does Stranger Things. It's Netflix. But when Ramp does The Office themed thing, it might not stick in your brain as much, but it might be enough to just get someone to be like, that was fun. That was weird. Let me think about why that actually happened. And I think there's value there.
Maybe Ramp should get a mascot. That seems to be like the overarching theme here is like, how do you build a world? It's like create a mascot and then put a world around it. Like look at the Duolingo cast of characters. Look at like, to your point earlier, Disney, like they have these things that you can turn into plushies. You can turn into whatever you want. And like you become obsessed with the character. So Rampy, consider that. Rampy
the ramp? Feel like, like a little
ramp? Maybe
Rampy
a little calculator.
The ram. Easy.
Wow, nailed it. Okay, so something I think is really interesting here too is like this kind of perpetual engagement, right? Why is Netflix doing this? And obviously they want to continue to grow, but I think something that's very important to mention is that they have an ad-supported tier. They've been really pushing that. And one of the ways that they need to support that ad-supported tier is engagement. So you know what they would love more than anything else is for people on the ad-supported tier or somebody sign up for the ad-supported tier because it's more attractively priced. And then they watch all of Stranger Things, and all before each episode or in between the episodes, they get lots of advertising inventory and they can serve their advertising clients that way. And I think that sustained engagement is obviously part of the game for Netflix, even more so than it was a couple years ago when they didn't have an ad tier. Because, if you were paying every month and you watched 1 minute, and you were still paying, that didn't really matter to them. Like you were still, that was
it doesn't
the revenue.
Matter to Netflix.
Revenue is revenue.
Yeah.
But I think in this moment, you do want, there is a segment of their viewership that is supporting ads, and that's a business that they're trying to grow. So, what is a way to keep people engaged and going back night after night or week after week and watching your service because you need people to do that so that you can support that side of the business. So it's like, it's engagement, not just for the purpose of brand love, but it also kind of services this other part of the business. And I think that kind of helps us understand like why they're investing so much in experiences and in merch. And I really wonder kind of what it's going to look like for Netflix when Stranger Things is over, because they're kind of, they're sort of spreading out this final season. There was a first batch of episodes that released over Thanksgiving weekend. weekend. There will be some more later in December, and then the final season finale will come out on New Year's Eve. So it's sort of very spaced out, I think designed for maximum engagement and buzz, which is very different than a lot of the way they release a lot of their shows, which is just all at once. Mm-hmm. They're like, watch it all, go ahead.
Kind of the model that they pioneered, and now they're like, we gotta get people to watch multiple times.
Oh, right,
so,
yeah.
I think it's an interesting rollout, and it's something that obviously everyone is paying attention to because Stranger Things has been such a key franchise for them. And obviously what's next is that they need to find the next Stranger Things. They need to kind of figure out what is the next batch of characters and IP that they can expand into this type of world, that they can put into Netflix House, that they can make experiences out of, that they can make merch out of. And originally it was something that they didn't know was going to blow up like this, right? So really the test of them as a brand is, can they invest in the right IP again to once again like find the next it show? They make so much content that like it feels like it's their batting average has got to be decent, you know, like they've got to find one eventually. But the next thing that I think they are paying attention to in the immediate is the awards season. It's awards I think are interesting to talk about because I'm curious what you guys think about. What is the role of awards in like marketing the brand of Netflix itself, right? Because obviously we're talking about awards like Emmys and Oscars, and that's like very fun to talk about. But marketers think about awards, whether that's like at Cannes or some of these newer awards that are coming up, like the TikTok awards we've talked about in the past, the Las Culturistas awards. So like it's something that I feel like brands are always thinking about, and Netflix is now coming into the season where they'll be focusing a lot on that. And they've never actually won a Best Picture. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do to maybe finally try and nail that like one high honor. And what do you guys think that like winning a Best Picture might do for Netflix as a brand?
I think it's such a gold star sort of moment, you know, a proof of, you know, it's a validation, right? And I also think that there are some people who say, I don't actually subscribe to this streaming service, or now I need to go watch this Best Picture, even being nominated, right? I think of my own viewing habits and people that I know who sort of when the nominations for something comes out, we go, okay, I've seen this one. I haven't seen this one. Maybe
it gets people
around
talking.
it. Yeah, exactly. So there is that sort of validation. But I do think it also sort of helps with that virtuous cycle of attracting more talent, attracting more stories, and finding that next Stranger Things, right? It's sort of like if you work with us, maybe you can get an award and then, you know, bring your story to us because we'll support it in the way that you want it to. You'll get plushies and activations and all of this. It will boost your profile as a storyteller. And I think that that's a really, you know, attractive thing as well.
I think they want to be the one-stop shop where you can get your Oscar-winning movies, but you can also get your second screen viewing reality TV shows like Love is Blind or any of the other like, you know, IP that they put out in that realm. It's like they want you to go there no matter what you're looking for, whether you want an award-winning movie or you want just like something to like scroll to while you're watching it.
Yeah,
right?
It can be everything and anything, whether it's prestige or just like trashy reality TV, which like everyone also loves.
Yeah, we're not susceptible to it.
Yeah.
We need it every now and then.
I will watch an Oscar-winning movie, and I will also watch Love is Blind. Like,
yeah,
that's
maybe one after another.
the duality of women.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And if Stranger Things or Netflix's strategies in general are inspiring you to take a look at your marketing plans, tell us about it. Send us an email at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. See you next week.